Well, hey guys, several weeks ago I came across this passage in Proverbs 27, verse 4, which says this: the rage and anger of others can be overwhelming. And I thought, yes, that's what I'm experiencing. Seeing all the rage and anger of others is overwhelming to me, and I need a break from it all. And I imagine that perhaps you were feeling the same way too. So if that is indeed the case today, we're going to take a break. We're going to interrupt the world's regularly scheduled programming to take a few minutes to step away from all the cancel culture, hyperpolarization, and pillaring that's going on. We're going to take a few minutes to step away from the all or nothing fallacies surrounding us and the us versus them bickering that seems to have a chokehold on 95% of news and social media these days. You and I really need something to feel good about, right? Like something like my version of cornhole, where I have boards that have 5 holes in it, not just one. And I feel really good about all the scoring I can do. It encourages me, and I always feel better after playing around. So I believe you and I need something similar for our souls. We need a break. We need something refreshing, something positive, something hope-inducing. So for the next few minutes, let's together just breathe in some fresh air. Let's look at something we can esteem. Let's look at someone we can admire. Let's accept the invitation of the writer of Hebrews, who invites us to fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith. A few key things come to mind today regarding Jesus. First, let's consider the freedom that Jesus had. And when I say freedom, I mean all of us to a great degree are trapped by the various cultural hierarchies of our culture or subculture. Consider Twitter. Doesn't matter whether you're liberal or conservative, doesn't matter whether you're an American or whether you're Chinese or Japanese or African, what you see is this bondage to deep polarization. There are these great people, and then there are these terrible people. And you're forced to kind of identify with the good people and show people that you identify with them, and then kind of point out the bad people and kind of show, well, I have nothing to do with them or want nothing to do with them. And looking at Twitter, it's all about who's in and who's out. So you have to identify with the people who are in, and you have to vilify the people, it seems, who are out. But Jesus didn't do that. Look at his attitude, for example, towards the tax collectors. The tax collectors were collaborators, Jewish collaborators with the Roman government. They were political outcasts, if you will. And Jesus was always eating with them. And to eat in those days meant fellowship that built friendship. And as he befriended them, he was welcoming them as family. You know, we as a church, I think we've come to realize that we've fallen prey to kind of this de facto justification of not being racist because we're simply part of a diverse church. But that's just friendship and kind of saying high fives and hellos in the fellowship. But we're really called to build deep family. Or what about the Samaritans? Those were the racial outcasts in a very race-conscious society. Those Samaritans that were the racial outcasts, nobody wanted anything to do with them. They were terrible people. And Jesus is always running around saying the Samaritans are equal to the Jews. The parable of the Good Samaritan tries to show that, and Jesus at one point in Luke 4 says he instigated a riot when he said God loves the Gentiles as much as he loves the Jews. So Jesus was so non-racist in an extremely racially stratified culture. Another example is Jesus and how he was with the moral outsiders, the prostitutes, for example, in Luke 7. We're told that when he was at a banquet, it says a woman of the city came in, and the woman of the city was just a typical way of talking about a prostitute, and she came in and began to weep on his feet and began to wash his feet with her tears, and everyone else in the room recoiled, but Jesus reached out to her. Or think about John 4, where he meets a woman at the well, the woman that was a Samaritan woman, that Samaritans women were known for having sort of loose morality. She may not have been a prostitute, but it was astounding that Jesus talked to her, and all his disciples were astounded because a Jewish male wouldn't even speak to a woman in public, wouldn't even talk to a woman like that, and yet Jesus reaches out to her, and he's tender to her, and he's trying to draw her along and give her some hope. And then you have the lepers. You know, the lepers, they were the ones who were permanently socially distanced. And because they were permanently so, you know for us how hard it's been to be temporarily socially distanced, but they were permanently socially distanced. And as a result, they were not just falling apart physically, but they were dying on the inside as well. And so Jesus comes in and he doesn't just heal them, he's always very careful to touch the lepers, which was forbidden. He touched them. And not to mention, beyond the political outsiders and the moral outsiders and the, the outcasts in a racial way, and Jesus engaging them, Jesus was also one who loved the poor. It's been said that the gospel is good news for the poor. So in all these ways, when you look at the freedom of Jesus Christ, he just has this unbridled freedom. He's not enslaved to who's in, who's out. He's not captive to who's up or who's down. He's not a slave to all the racial and gender and sexual and moral and class divisions. He's totally free from all those kinds of prejudices. The second thing that we can esteem about Jesus is his wisdom. And what I mean by his wisdom, you and I, we have temperaments. And that is to say that we tend to habitually maybe be more outspoken, whereas others of us are more quiet. Some of us are more introverted, where others are more extroverted. Some are more quick to act, whereas others of us are more eager to kind of hold back, get a lay of the land before we take any actions. All of these are temperaments, just habitual ways we have of reacting. And that's the reason why we're always getting into trouble, because life demands very different things from us at different times. So, for example, those of us who tend to hold back, we sometimes get into a situation in which we really should have acted more quickly. Or some of us maybe tend to speak right up when we get in a situation when we really should have listened a bit longer. But for Jesus, he never made any of these kind of missteps. I read some years ago where somebody wrote, "No one has yet discovered a word Jesus ought to have said." Nor actually did Jesus ever say the wrong thing. Never. I mean, he heals a woman from a flow of blood, and he knows that she needs to be public about it, and he demands that she come out and tell everybody what happened to her. And then just 2 chapters later with a deaf mute, he wants to heal the deaf mute. He takes him away from everyone else, gives them total privacy, and heals them in private. Why? Well, because he knew what was perfectly wise in every situation. No one has ever discovered a word Jesus ought to have said, or a word that Jesus said that was wrong. So, Jesus was perfectly wise, and he was unbelievably free. And finally, and perhaps most encouragingly of all, Jesus was beautiful. And what I mean by that is he is beautiful because he combines these traits that you never find together in the same person. He's beautiful in these ways. He joins the strongest commitment to justice with an astonishing mercy and grace. He's filled with integrity without being too rigid. This beauty of Jesus was eloquently captured by the 19th century Scottish minister John Watson in this quote: "Despite his high claims, Jesus is never pompous. You never see him standing on his own dignity. He is tenderness without weakness, strength without harshness, humility without the slightest lack of confidence, unhesitating authority with a complete lack of self-absorption, unbending convictions without the slightest lack of approachability, power without insensitivity, enthusiasm without fanaticism, holiness without Pharisaism, passion without prejudice. Nothing he does falls short. In fact, he's always surprising you and taking your breath away because he's so incomparably better than you could imagine for yourself." Why? The surprises you get when you read the life of Jesus are the surprises of perfection. There's never a false step, never a jarring movement. This is life at the highest. What an amazing quote about an amazing Jesus. And so when we read about Jesus and just taking these few moments to look and consider him, what shines about him is his astounding wisdom, his astounding freedom, and beauty. I don't know about you, but I needed that break. When the world's getting us down and wants to bring us down into the muck and mire, we just need something different, someone to feel good about, who surprises us in the best way with just refreshing and help and positivity. So let us admire Jesus. and let us aspire to imitate His freedom and wisdom and beauty today and every day. And as always, thanks for tuning in.